Good morning. It is the final episode of week number 3 here at Morning Momentum. Excited about sharing with you. Looking forward to digging into the Word of the Lord. We're going to be talking today about the concept of shift. There are times in our lives that we need to make some adjustments. Let's dig in and talk about it right here on Morning Momentum. I would openly admit that physics was not my strongest subject back in my high school days. Actually, I'm not really sure what my strong subject was, but that's for another time and another place. But I do recall Newton's first law of motion, which states objects at rest tend to stay at rest, and objects in motion tend to stay in motion with the same speed and in the same direction unless acted on by an outside force. The fact is that all of us, are creatures of habit, and we tend to get kind of stuck in our ways, whether those ways are positive or negative. When we find a place of comfort and contentment, we are likely to stay in that position or that place until some outside force can compel and convince us to move. Perhaps the most prominent character of the New Testament outside of Jesus Christ was a prolific leader and visionary by the name of Paul. Actually, at our first introduction, his name is Saul, and he is a terrifying figure who is persecuting those that are preaching Jesus Christ. In Acts chapter 8, verse number 3, Saul is described as ravaging the church, a word which is used of violent actions in war. The Bible tells us that Paul was zealous in his persecution of the early church and thinking that he was doing the right thing by trying to snuff out this new faction, this new segment. Had there been no outside force to act upon his life, he would have probably continued to violently oppose this new growing entity, this growing revival church. Yet Acts chapter 9 informs us that while he was on the road leading to the place called Damascus, an outside force did indeed act upon him. That outside force appeared as a bright light, and an audible voice came from the heavens that would identify himself as Jesus, the one that Paul was persecuting, the very one whose preaching Paul had been trying to eradicate. The outside force of the power of Jesus Christ would change the direction of Paul, and he would become one of the greatest proponents and propagators of the gospel of Jesus Christ. This experience brought about an unmistakable and undeniable shift in Paul's life. As many of you know, I grew up in farm country in southern Magic Valley of southern Idaho, and you could obtain, because we had so many farms and tractors and farmers needing their kids to help with the workload, we had the opportunity to drive at the age of 14. You can get your driver's license at 14. Mind you, this was only a daytime driving license, however, but when you're 14 and you have wheels, you're pretty cool. Now you know me, I was born with only one hand, and you would think my parents would baby me and try to make it a bit easier on me growing up, but they didn't, and I'm extremely thankful that they didn't. My dad was a contractor, and he traded some work for a car that he was going to give me, and I thought, oh man, this is awesome. And I remember looking out the window down the dirt road that our house was on, and I'm thinking to myself, man, is dad bringing me a Trans Am? Trans Ams were cool back then. Is it a four-wheel drive? Needless to say, I was somewhat surprised when he drove down the lane to our house out in the country with an avocado green Datsun B210 station wagon. I'm just going to let that hang there. And to top it off, it was a stick shift. I remember saying, Dad, hey, it's a stick shift. I don't know if you noticed, but I only have one hand. And he said, I know, but this is how you're going to learn to drive. You're going to first learn to drive on a manual transmission. I am so thankful he did that. I remember him taking me out to drive down the country roads there in Idaho, where all I needed to worry about when it came to traffic was tractors and cows in the road. But the one thing that stood out to me early on was, as you are moving forward, you had to learn to shift. There were a few times I thought I was going to blow the engine up because I wasn't familiar with the concept of shifting gears. Beyond learning to merge into the lane with a herd of cattle that had been loosed from their grazing fields, I also had to learn how to deal with the challenge of moving the car forward without giving the passengers any type of whiplash. I can recall that once I finally got the car moving forward, I would then begin focusing on going into the traffic and anything that was around me, and the engine of the car would literally sound as if it was about to explode. And my dad or my mom would patiently say, yet firmly remind me that it was time to shift gears. That increased momentum calls for an additional shift. Today, you may feel like your life has veered down some paths that you never intended to go down. Maybe you made some choices that you never thought you would make. You find yourself battling regret and remorse, and you're upset about the direction that your life has moved in. Perhaps you are maybe what Newton described as an object of rest. You lack motivation, you lack desire, you lack passion. You're just kind of stuck. My hope is that in some small way, today's morning momentum can be that outside force to kind of nudge you just a little bit, to get you to shift, to move forward in God. Lean forward into the destiny that God has prepared for your life. I believe every single individual that's listening to this right now, there is a specific destiny for your life. God's got a plan for you. The growing frustration and dissatisfaction, maybe that's simply God's way of letting you know it's time to shift gears. It's time to move forward. As always, please like, comment, and share. Let people know about Morning Momentum. Thank you to everyone that has sent me a text or maybe an email or commented on the various videos that we have posted on YouTube. Make sure to subscribe on our YouTube channel. And again, tell everyone you can. We're trying to get the news out about Morning Momentum. Want to be a blessing. Till next week, have an awesome day.